Welcome everyone to another episode of Coffee and Whiteboard Markers, where we attempt to talk all things teaching. I'm joined by my co-host Jody Eppier.
How are you?
I'm Miles O'Kane. Look forward to taking you all along for the ride. I haven't seen so much rain since this time last year, mate. It's just coming down at the moment, you know. And it's interesting when a bit of rain comes, students seem not to, at least in our case, make it to school as much. So it's a little bit of a added effect there, but it's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Oh, the rain, even drivers, bro. The rain affects the drivers. It's like everybody slows right down.
Yeah, and the way here after school today, like the traffic jam was backed up for like tens of kilometres because there's a crash further up. It's interesting times, isn't it? What are we now? Week 7 turn to of an 11-week term with a Monday public holiday coming up. It always brings a smile to my face when there's a public holiday, isn't there? You start to, when I see it at the start of the year, I'm like, oh, that'll be all right. And then as it creeps closer, I'm like, I definitely need this right now.
I think it's even nicer when a kid reminds you, oh, there's no school on Monday. I'm like, what?
Or when you remind the kids, they lose it. What do you eat? Sir, are you serious? Well, hold, no, are you lying to me, sir? Is it definitely no school? I'm like, I'm not lying to you. It's definitely no school. All right, so wins and improvements for the weeks. I'll let you take it away, yeah?
I think one of the wins for me, especially in the classroom, is just the structure of how the class is now. I think everyone knows. Coming in, everyone knows what to do. Everyone knows. It's almost like they're self-governing now. So just nice to see like the systems that you put in place actually come to fruition. Even though term 2 is heading into winter and it's getting colder, but the kids still understand the whole process behind it. So that's a definite win for me. It's just to see the processes work.
Yeah, for me, I was touching on it last week. I want to say emotional regulation, but just patience. Like I think everyone is very under pressure right now this time of the term across teachers. I make an extra step just to remind myself it's razor thin patience at the moment, and just be aware of that. Like there's possibly times during the day where when I'm a bit more rested and have more energy, I would go harder at that issue, whatever it is. But it's just at the moment, it's kind of just doing your best to get through. I find the improvement would be. Do you have an improvement?
Oh, I'm going to go with.
You're good like that.
Because at the moment we've got a prac teacher that's sort of come on board. So it's just, I think one of the improvements is watching a young teacher to learn the ropes. But the cool thing is that at the beginning he was quite, he not struggled, but he was quite tense. But then as the weeks have gone on, he's learned to actually hear a young teacher laughing with kids. Shows that they have that sort of built that relationship.
And we've shared the same teacher across different classes with ours. I've noticed that as well. It's been nice to see the confidence grow. Yeah. It took me back when I started teaching, and I guess after you've been doing it for a while, you forget the small things. But then I think back, like when I started off, you you're fearful, you're anxious, you don't know what to expect. Yeah. You got 30 kids looking back at you, so it's well done to all you pre-service teachers out there. We appreciate you. All right, the question for this week: your first ever job.
Ooh, I'm going to go paid job. Dad just dropped me off at his mate's, literally. And his mate owned a trucking yard and he needed this huge shed painted. And he said, right, here's the paint. He goes, I need these beams painted, and the beams were...
Rumour has it, I'm not saying if it's true or not, was there possibly a forklift involved with this job?
Absolutely, I had my forklift licence by the time I was 10, 11, 12.
That's definitely happened.
But it was one of those things where he sort of like said, I said, how do I get up there? He goes, here's the machine. So, and you're pretty much governed on your own, and Dad simply gave me this, one thing he said was, don't be too fast to finish the job, purely based on the fact that you might make mistakes, but just make sure it's a good job. So when you do it really well. So he said, just take my time. So I took my time with the painting. On the old breaks, when you get there, when you give yourself a break, because I wasn't actually on a clock in the sense of being watched.
Yep.
So when I did have a break, oh man, when it was raining back then, and you had a forklift and rain on the concrete, just the ability to manoeuvre
test your cornering, back then.
Drifting was I think I created drifting.
I was 15 years old working at Super Value, which is now I think IGA, bagging groceries and taking them to the car for the customers for a whopping $5 an hour. Someone talk to the kids now, and obviously there's inflation, price increases and everything, but when they're getting paid $16 an hour, I'm like, that's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah.
Just working 4 hours and getting $20.
I think my very first other job than that was $9 an hour, and I was like, $9 an hour? Dad goes, you earn on $9 now, $18 next hour, 27. I was like, yep, okay. So that whole work ethic, like the money was an added value,
Yeah.
but you sort of found that you understood what it meant to actually work when you have to get up early in the morning, go to work, come back late in the afternoon, and you enjoy a meal. Like mum would cook a meal, and you really, really enjoyed that meal.
You put the work in, yeah.
Oh, you just felt like, well, I sort of had a glimpse, but I think when I found out the value of money was when I first had to put gas in the car. Well, that hit me. That was a huge...
What was petrol back then, like 23 cents? 24. It's not anymore, I'll tell you that much.
No.
Tell you that much. But you do, I think I always say to the students, I think casual work, from a young age, you definitely learn about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And you learn about society pretty quick. And I hated it at the time, but I did appreciate having my own money, which was a nice thing. So I'm thinking, look, just with reports and stuff around the corner for probably most schools, definitely in Western Australia, I think now might be a chance to sort of look at the like how to handle differing curriculum abilities within a lower school class. We're not going to talk about streaming in this one. We're not going to have an opinion on it. It's just purely, here's a mixed ability class.
Yep.
How do we deal with 30 students when you might have students working at all different ability levels, and how to sort of try to get the best out of each student, which can be difficult at times. So we've got a few ideas. I think we sort of roll through those now and go from there. So I think the first talking point, let's have a look at sort of a lower school mixed ability classroom. What does it look like? I'll start with this one. I mean, I think it's depending. So usually there's 30 to 32 students on a list, depending on attendance. And obviously the school you're at, you have anywhere from 10 to 30 kids attending. We at our school generally have about 15 to 20 students attending in a class. So of those 15 and 20, to say any lower school class, we've got first two assessments. We work off the national curriculum and make sure all our sort of assessments are weighted towards the judging standards from A to E grade. From there, sort of the first two assessments, any students that are moving towards an E grade, on an E grade, and really struggling, it's time for us sort of as a department or as teachers to start making a change to the curriculum. I think on that, so say we work off the 20 students, from my experience it's sort of similar schools to this. You maybe have, if you're lucky, 10 kids that are able to handle the Australian curriculum. Then you've got maybe another 2 or 3 kids pushing below that, trying to work their way up to that. Then you've got 5 to 6, whatever the remaining students are, really struggling. Now the problem with that, when the students are really struggling, then it creates behaviour problems. I mean, most lessons are, or I've worked out, around an hour. An hour is a long time to not know what you're doing. And not saying this is the golden bullet, but it's definitely, I've found it's helped me over time. So what does it look like to you, those lower school classes?
Yeah, well, when I look at my lower school, as you said, we got a range from kids that may really, really struggle and have got so many gaps, to kids that are like, pick it up straight away because they've been their consistency with going to school and learning. So you sort of have to sort of try and accommodate, and I agree, roughly out of a class of let's say 30, you may have 15 on average attending. Sometimes it might go up to about 20, 22, and it could drop right down. Irrespective, I think, as you said, out of that 20, let's say 10 of those kids are pushing. But I would definitely say the ones that are below grade, those are the ones, when I differentiate inside the class, I get the ones who are high flyers, set them off, let them go do this, and just checking in with them, making sure they're doing the work. But then when I look at the middle, the majority of the middle, and that's where the ones who are still sort of learning the topics or learning the skills of that mathematical process. Once you establish the step-by-step process and gives them time to practice and then allow them to do it on their own, they're pretty much away. It's the ones that struggle to understand each step. Those are the ones that I end up working with the most. Yeah,
and I guess, and this is where it can get a little bit confronting for teachers, when you've got so many students working at different abilities, you feel like you're spread pretty thin. But then to sort of go down the path of differentiation, if you just, there's really basic steps to it, just doing slightly more watered down or modified work for the students who are struggling. But I think once you start to implement a process, and obviously like anything, the more experience you have, the better. But I think once you can start to roll out a process, it starts to help that lesson shape in those kids. So I think, so we roll in from that, the first point being the overview. what can we do as a process to look at how to help these students? So I think if we look at our experience, so the first couple of assessments, I mean, it's important that you get the data that's common across the class or the year group. So we would suggest keep them on the Australian curriculum to start with. From there, if the student's really struggling, which, you know, a lot of them do, you can start to get your diagnostic testing out. Now, your diagnostic testing is going to show you what the student can and can't do. You can get there's a lot of resources out there these days for diagnostic testing. It doesn't have to be too intense, but as long as you've got something that gives you a sort of equivalent year grade, I think it can start to work with you. You know, from there, it's probably best that you can get some. I mean, we work off student books. I think works quite well. We use IMATs, not that we're sponsored or promoting them in any way, or any monetary value for this, but I've definitely found the scaffolding and the sort of organisation of the student workbook does help with that. So I think after you've got all the data up and you've got your groups, the way it look in, I think I've run it, is you get in and do your first 15, 20 minutes all together as the classroom. From there, you can start to break into your curriculum. So I try to group the students up. So you students, like you touched on before, students who are handling the curriculum, I'll deal with the instructions with them first, because usually the student workbooks are structured enough the students can start at least something. The Australian curriculum requires a bit more explanation. So I can get them set up. Then once they're set up, ready to go, and have a few scaffold examples, I can get over to the group who's working on differentiated work. Now, I mean, in a ideal world, you're like an education assistant in there to be able to help out, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So it's understanding not to spread yourself too thin as well, and you only do what you can do. What's your thoughts?
I think it's great. I think in the sense even what you're doing at the moment, to be bold enough to actually do something about it, instead of just letting the wheel just keep rotating around and letting the gaps get wider for those kids who are struggling to get to national curriculum level. It's good that you have people such as yourself who are willing to hey, we've identified these kids, let's put them on an alternative program to try and give them a bit of confidence and build that confidence in just simple mathematical concepts.
And I know years ago when I was a teacher, people would say to me, like, what about, you know, differentiation? And my head alarm bells go off because you feel like you get an extra work to do it. But I think it's the beauty with the IT and so many companies out there these days, there's a lot of pre-made stuff you can use, and usually most of it seems pretty good. So if you're willing to do a bit of research at the start, not a crazy amount, just get in contact with a few consultants, it cuts out a lot of workload there.
Yeah. But I like the fact that, you know, you got some teachers that will talk about making change and you know, wanting the change, which is actually a good thing, but it's the teachers that actually take that extra step to go, hey, we're going to actually change this and actually put and implement something in place. And to watch some of these kids that we have identified over time who are struggling with just your basics, just to put them onto a program. And yes, we might have a bit of kickback from the student, whatever else, but at the end of the day, it's about building that child up confident enough to be able to go, I know how to do this. And then once success, what is the saying? Success breeds more success, breeds more success. And then if you can build that in a kid, then their love for math or love for whatever topic becomes like, wow, this is easy. I really enjoy this. I had a conversation with a kid today, and he was simply saying, it's the way that you can break down math and make it seem a lot more simple and use it real basic language, because some of these kids don't even know some of the basic terminologies. So trying to make it real.
I think you can get by telling the students you're structuring a way to think with maths and to follow a process. And then obviously, I mean, the final thing is you want your learner plans or your IEPs, individual education plans or group education plans to cover all that. And again, even for us, Icon, the portal in West Australia, I think is quite good. It takes a bit I hadn't seen it before, it takes a bit to learn it, but you can have that all set up for templates. Yep. And then all teachers have to do is fill out a student name and do some strengths and weaknesses. But that, having your plans there, having a program of work, and I like having, for my staff and then the students, some kind of physical hard copy. Now there is all different online programs and stuff, but we didn't have the availability for the scale we were working with. So then we've got the overview, we've got the process. Let's look at some of the drawbacks involved in the differentiation process. Yep. So I think the first one is, I mean, the students who are sort of working below national curriculum can feel a bit labelled or shunned. You know, and that can be a little bit delicate, and you don't want to sort of go in there and just throw stuff at them and go, you guys just teach yourself. You know, I mean, there's got to be the same amount of teaching. It's just got to be taught different concepts. You know, I mean, I think ways to overcome this, you're able to constantly, obviously it comes down to you as a teacher having rapport with your class. I mean, we're experienced teachers, so we can, you know, if a students were to say stuff in my class to one another, you'd shut it down straight away. And then do your best to sort of just go, I like to bring it back to the key to education should be to get everyone to a better life with more opportunities.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you can relate it back to that, students don't feel like they're doing the lesser work and that they can't, just to build up, you know, but it needs to be constantly communicated from that. And then I think it's, you know, just communicating to the class, just say, look, people are working at different levels here.
Correct.
I want to get the best out of everyone because that's my job's, you know, to obviously educate you, but then by doing that, I'd hope to get you a better life. You know, and then if we can work together, that's the grand outcome here. And that does rely on a lot of the teacher relationships with students.
It does. I think that's that's actually like a cornerstone of this whole sort of differentiation, is the ability to explain to the kids that it's actually a good thing. That it's one of these things where you've got to start a journey with the first step, and no matter what it is, sometimes some of the kids haven't had that first step, and it's going back to go forward. So it works by building up their confidence and instilling in them the basics. And once you see them starting to go, wow, this is easy, then you add another part on, and then all of a sudden they struggle with it a little, and then they go, wow, this is easy. And then after a while, all of a sudden you see these kids go, wow, so this is so easy. Then their whole like of the subject becomes like one of those things where, I don't even know why I didn't dislike the subject. It comes down to a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding. Kids do a lot of things where they think that they aren't they're not clever enough, and they write themselves off.
Yeah.
They had a bad relationship with math or understanding of math at some stage in their life. So it's pulling all those strongholds down off those kids and changing their mindset to say, well, let's go back to the very basics and let's start building you up. Now, those kids that take offence in the sense to say, oh, you know, we're the not so bright kids, that they can overcome that, because once they start seeing the fruits of their labour and they're starting to achieve, all of a sudden you see them from going from a frown to a half smile to a big smile, and all of a sudden it just goes, wow.
And then the students are engaged, and then the follow through from that is that they're actually cutting out behaviour issues. And I think on that as well, it's good for the teacher to build momentum with that.
Yeah.
So like the first couple of lessons, like make sure you set it up strong, and just, I mean, be wary. There's going to be teething problems. You're not going to get it perfect straight away. But any chance you get to catch those students doing the right thing, just, well, that's awesome, well done, that's all we're working on today, congratulations. I mean, I made my way through to a class today in our department which was doing a final period, and they were good. You know, and so it can be a tricky class at times, but they were done some pages of work there, you know, so I think it's good to be able to communicate that as well. Just because you're doing separate work doesn't mean you're a different person. I can't spell. My mother's an English teacher. I just had to rote learn it, and like I hated it, but I eventually got there. But it seems like it's different these days. You know, it's a different approach. Yeah, I mean, and then I was saying before, I mean, once you're going down the differentiation route, you've just got to be careful not that you're neglecting those students' learning. So the red flags would be just you give them the students working differentiation, give them easy, busy work, and then you're actually teaching just the other bunch. Yeah. You know, you want to make sure it's harder to start with, but I think the long-term payoff's more effective.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Now again, you just don't start with maybe 2 groups in the class. You don't want to just subdivide, and then once you get built up, you might find there could be possibly a 3rd group there. You know, or if you're more comfortable, you go where you want to. But I would say, like anything, just take small bites to start with, and then build the foundation strong. But yeah, I mean, a definite red flag for me would be is just students are doing some real basic work just so they're quiet, and then the other students are actually getting all the attention, you know. And where the tricky bit is with this is being able to divide your time in the classroom. Yep. Yeah, and you do the same. Start off certain students, get that ready to go, and then once they're rolling, you can get around to the differentiation. Now, the differentiation, those students are going to need more scaffolding. So hopefully, if you've got the right resource there to help you, but it will bide you enough time to be able to sort of get round and work with the students. And again, as an education assistant there, make sure you're communicating the experience.
One of the great resources that's underutilised in a sense is the actual, as you say, the education assistant. They can actually help the kid and if they're good, they form that relationship with their kid, and then that's another thing that's a positive for the kid, because usually it's like a 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, 1-on-3, 1-on-4, where the numbers are where you feel a lot more that you can ask questions a lot more without feeling like you're being judged. So the education assistants, big shout out to you lot, because the work that you do may go unnoticed in the big grand scheme of things, but it's the small things that you do that help these kids get to where they need to get to. So that's a big thing. And regarding the regarding how you differentiate inside the class, yes, it's your skill to, as a teacher, to try and extend those who need extending, to keep the ones in the middle that needs that little bit of encouragement to keep going even when it might be tough. At the same time you're doing those groups, it's the ability to go back to the start, rub everything out, and build a kid up from scratch. So you're multitasking within multitasking at the same time, and it's quite a skill to watch when you see operators that can do that, and just make it look so seamless because they've set the routine up so well. So establishing a routine at the beginning, stick at it, keep going to the point where the kids get it, then all of a sudden it just starts running itself.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. If you treat everything as a team in there, so you have the students all working together on the same stuff to start with, then that might just be a starter activity to get them in the door and get them doing something.
Yep.
And then you're right. I mean, I think it is, given the education assistants, a decent education assistant is worth their weight in gold.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not paid gold these days, which they should. Anyway, there's a chance they should be. But it's and talking to the kids, like I like to, then make note of the education assessment in the class so everyone knows that we're in here together as a team. It's not just, two separate teams working within the same class. I mean, my final point is, and I kind of touched on it before, the teacher doing this process, you can feel as a teacher being spread thin with planning and then different teaching required. But again, I mean, some waging in around that. There's plenty of resources out there. So you can get a package around diagnostic testing and then, I mean, intervention programs. There's a lot of stuff online, and there's a lot of physical resources as well. And again, we use the physical resources because it's something to have in front of the students, and then, I think it's to be able to help yourselves. You're not just creating a rod for your back.
Yep.
That's going to be a good step in the right direction.
I think the fact that we get together and we have the opportunity to share our thoughts on how we've seen things happen through our experience over the years. And the good thing is that this also is a resource that can allow teachers to understand, hey, we've had teething problems with the stuff that we've done. We've tried it. We've had experience with this. Some went well, some didn't go so well. So you sort of tweak, and it's constantly tweaking. It's a combination of you as a teacher, your teaching style. It's the students that you have. It's the environment that you're in, and it's trying to create something by where everyone's on the same page, rowing in the same direction. Even though some may be rowing slower than others, at least they are rowing in the same direction. And then you'll see them, once they move from one step to the next step, and they've conquered the first one, they go, oh, this is easy. Then you watch the natural part, like anything. When you introduce another part of the process, it's hard at first. Then you watch them conquer that, then you introduce another part. So we all know that kids work at different levels and at different speeds. It's trying to cater for all at the same time. But yes, you said, don't spread yourself so thin, but look at what you can establish to self-govern itself. The high flyers, they can self-govern. They can pretty much do a lot of the stuff, and you just have to tweak and check in and making sure that, and constantly giving them praise, because I find that sometimes the high flyers are the ones that are more overlooked because...
There's an element of that, I can say that. Yeah.
So like differentiation, it works. It's a good thing. It's one of those things where if you do it well, if you establish it well, it really works. Like as you say, the first 15 minutes of my lesson or 10 minutes, I'm just hammering basic facts. And at the moment, we're just doing our times tables. And it's to the point where the kids are just showing off that they know their 6 times tables. And then now and again, we'll play a game, shoot off towards one another, see who's quickest, see who can get the answers. And then I said, right, the whole class versus me. And they go, oh, and I said, look, I'm slow, I'm old, and they go, but you're wiser. And I said, it doesn't matter. You guys know all this. And the kids are trying to battle against you as the teacher. And when they win one, you could just see the whole class go, wow, we got that one. So then I'll smoke them on the next one. And then it's like, but at the end of the day, it's a game. but it's a game by where everybody's enjoying the learning.
You're part of a team to start with, I think so. And that's key. It's not just separating into the separate teams.
Yeah.
So look, I mean we're for differentiation in our context. We think it's working. I mean, obviously it's taking some work, but I think there's some benefits there. So look, all we're saying is if you haven't, there's a lot. Teaching's hard these days. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot of different abilities, especially in those lower school classes. So if you're working in a mixed ability class and there's no streaming, maybe you're having problems with those tougher kids, maybe try some differentiation, do some research, talk to some people, shoot us an email or find our emails, whatever you want to do. We're more than happy to help you out. So look, like always, we appreciate you listening and we look forward to the next episode.